Hey, hello everyone, and welcome to our Experience AI Challenge webinar. I'm Mr. C, and I'm so excited to be here today with Lizzie to celebrate the awesome projects that you all made with AI.
Hi everyone, it's great to be here. We are so excited. We are also very excited because we are going to be joined by a very special guest this afternoon. We have Dr. Rosemary Francis, who is the Chief Scientist for High Performance Computing at Altair, who will be answering your questions on everything AI.
Yeah, we're really pleased that Rosemary's joining us this afternoon. Rosemary leads the team at Altair who make the software infrastructure for most of the world's commercial supercomputers, doing everything from weather forecasting to drug discovery.
Yeah, it's really exciting work, and I can't wait to hear more about it.
Totally, and it's been really amazing to see the projects that you all submitted for the challenge this year, because we've had everything from hot dog identifiers to posture assistance and even a chocolate or ice cream detector.
Yeah, I think I need to check out the ice cream detector, Mark. That sounds right up my street. The projects we've had this year have been so cool, and I think we have a nice little video. Shall we check some of the projects out?
Yeah, definitely. Amazing, super cool. We're really lucky today to be joined by a computing expert for the webinar. So let's give a warm Experience AI welcome to Dr. Rosemary Francis.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me.
No worries. Thank you for joining us. We've got some really cool questions for you today from our challenge participants, and some of them are kind of hardball too. So, I hope you're ready for it.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
Woohoo! So before we dive into the questions, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do and the work you're involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Chief Scientist for High Performance Computing. That's also often called supercomputing. So our customers have supercomputers that are used to run AI and simulation workloads for doing a whole range of different things. I heard you already mention drug discovery and weather forecast, but our customers also design cars with our tools, design aeroplanes, as well as renewable energy. And a lot of the focus is around making those tools and machinery last longer, making them manufactured more sustainably, and to use less energy when we travel around.
Well, that's really cool. That's there's a real breadth there. Like when you said you work with supercomputers, my first thought was as much processing power as you can produce in a machine is what you do. But that's like a really broad sort of thing. And I think some of our questions might dig into some of the things you just mentioned there. So do you mind if we crack on with some of the questions then?
Go ahead.
Fantastic. So this one's kind of a broad one, but it's like really relevant to young people. And I think we've got one of our contributors asking, what knowledge and skills outside of STEM do you think are useful for working in AI?
Well, so that's a great question, and I think it applies to much more broadly to technology as a whole, not just AI. I'm a big believer in STEAM, so that's science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. And I studied fine art at school, and I also studied music, and those are interests that I continue today. And I spend a lot of time doing art and design and music with my children. So I think it's very important to have a well-rounded experience, because if you don't understand the world, then you cannot apply technology to it. And what's also important is people skills. So that means communicating ideas effectively, getting on well within a team, being able to work with people to get around differences or disagreements in order to put together a solution together. So I think that applies to really any area of technology, not just AI. And I think as we see jobs change and the specific skills change, I think as long as we focus on our ability to work together and to solve problems creatively, taking ideas from lots of different areas, then I think those skills will make you successful no matter what you work in.
Absolutely. And I think it's really interesting at the moment when you look at what's happening in the AI space, and there's a lot of discussion around education and soft skills making a real comeback when you've got these really powerful tools that can do a lot of those sort of nuts and boltsy type things, the computational parts, but the bits that make us human are almost irreplaceable, right? Those communicative, creative parts. That's really, really interesting. And I have to be honest, that's not the common answer we get when we ask that question. What's important to work in your field of tech? It's very rare that people will say the human skills, I think, are the most important things you can bring to tech. Love that refreshing answer. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. And I did a history degree, so I'm always an advocate for STEAM as well.
Me too.
Fantastic.
Should we move on to the next question? Great. So this one's one I think what we'll be really interested in. What work do you think the field of AI needs to do to make the technology environmentally friendly?
Well, this is something which is a very important to the work that I do now, because I work in the area of providing large-scale compute for AI, for big AI workloads. So workloads like self-driving cars or training large language models, things like that. That uses a huge amount of compute. That means lots and lots of computers working together. And it uses a huge amount of power, and the power affects even where you can build these compute farms or data centers. So making sure that the technology is environmentally friendly means addressing those needs. And it also means thinking about the longevity of that compute. At the moment, we actually we renew the machines in supercomputers roughly every 3 to 5 years, which means that those machines, they take a lot of energy to make, a lot of raw materials, and we're not using them for very long before they're obsolete. And they become obsolete because of the power, because the newer machines use less power for the compute. It's cheaper to buy a new machine that uses less power than it is to keep using the old ones. And so very sadly, often you can't even give away old supercomputers to people who wouldn't be able to buy their own, purely because they don't have the resources to turn them on, and it wouldn't do them much good if they did. It would just use too much power. So really, power is the biggest driver to making supercomputers more sustainable. If we had sustainable, environmentally friendly power, not just to drive the machines, but also to capture the heat that comes off them, because all of that energy gets turned into heat. Then if we can do that, then we can use the supercomputers for longer, and we can do more with them.
Yeah, and you were saying earlier as well about it matters where you build a data center. Like, is that because of the heat problems as well, or what sort of geographical issues when you're building one of those?
It's because they draw so much power. So some of the largest supercomputers draw as much power as a medium-sized town. So when building a supercomputer, you have to speak to the electricity grid in order to make sure that they can drive that. So building solar, for example, Texas supercomputers use a lot of solar power. In Iceland, they use a lot of renewable thermal energy. And in Japan, there are supercomputers that cannot be used during peak times because the grid in Tokyo can't supply them with the electricity that they need. So they have to power down the supercomputer when everyone comes home and makes dinner. So it's really a huge concern. People care about where their data center is because of where their data is. But you also need to think about whether you can power the data center.
Wow, amazing. It's not even a consideration I had, was like how much juice it would take to run a supercomputer as part of the major considerations of even having one or creating one. That's really interesting. And so, sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to add, actually, outside of the data center, AI consumes power as well. Obviously, you run a lot of inference on your mobile phone, and that's very highly optimized. But we're looking at self-driving cars as well as the electrification of cars, so moving from petrol or diesel to electric battery-powered cars. And we cannot do that at the same time as having self-driving cars at the moment, because the compute power to drive the car instead of having a human driving is just too high. The car would be only be able to go a few miles before it would run out of power. So the power to train the model in the data center, and then the power to steer the car on the road, it's just too much. That is one of the main barriers to holding back self-driving car technology at the moment.
Interesting. I could talk about this all day, but we've got some more questions that we have to move on to. Genuinely, like, that's so interesting to me. All of that sort of thing about how we then look at scaling them versus the power consumption. Anyway, we have to move on. So the next question: what are interesting research areas around AI technology outside of machine learning that you know of? So the challenge was focused on machine learning, but there's a lot more to the AI umbrella than just that.
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I would say, so at Altair, we talk about not just AI, but we talk about data analytics. And because AI spans a big spectrum of, at one end, you're doing full deep learning, and you're creating videos that look like people talking that aren't really talking, and so really amazing things, and cats that can sing and so forth. At the other end, you're simply trying to understand trends in your data. And that's equally important. And making sure, actually, at the sort of more data analytics side of things, that you are interpreting your data effectively and communicating that effectively is really a challenge. It's very easy to misunderstand data, either because you don't understand the way the numbers have been manipulated, or because you don't understand the way that data has been collected, and that affects how you interpret the data. And if you're making decisions about that, that's a very serious thing. And that's a problem that starts right at the point where you're drawing a graph from some numbers you've collected, right up to the other end of the spectrum when you're doing deep learning and making really big decisions based on complex analysis of that data. So that's a huge challenge. Of course, I'm on the compute side, so I would also say that an area of research is on the compute side. We are coming to the end of what is called Moore's law, and that's where computers have got faster or cheaper or denser. You can interpret Moore's law in a number of different ways. He's widely misquoted, which it doesn't really matter. But every two years or 18 months, computers get twice as good, and we're really coming to the end of that, because a transistor, the smallest component in a computer, it's got to the point now where it is just 100 atoms across, or maybe less in some places. And trying to manufacture that effectively, we've really got to the point where it's really not possible to get much smaller. And so we've got to make big architectural changes to our computers so that we still see improvements without having that shrink. It's called shrinking of geometry. So without having those transistors getting smaller or faster or cheaper. And one of the ways we can do that is by using alternative technologies such as AI, which is a fairly dramatic change in the way we do computation. So that's being able to give us answers that we couldn't get through more traditional compute algorithms. Another way is by designing chips in different ways, and there are lots of exciting new computer architectures coming out that look really different and are very complicated and very powerful and very application specific. So that's something we're going to see. We're going to see chips made just for AI or just for some other specific purpose, more so than we have done previously. And the other thing we're going to see is quantum computing, which previously, honestly, 10 years ago, I thought was just complete science fiction. And it really isn't now. We're still a long way from having practical quantum computers. and we're still not really sure how they're going to impact the world. But they are going to make a massive difference because they do computation in a completely different way, and we're going to be able to do medical research, AI, and surface technology. So looking at things like paint or the way components rub together. We're going to be able to do those calculations with quantum computing, and that really is the last leap of Moore's law, if you like, because quantum computing involves doing computations just with one atom.
Atomic level, yeah.
Yeah, instead of having a gate with say 100 atoms across it.
That's crazy. And when we're looking at changing these architectures, these new architectures of chips are coming out, which is the way the transistors are sort of put together to make the logic that runs through the chip, right? So you put them together in different ways and they work in different ways, maybe more efficiently. Are we also looking at material science for those sorts of things? Are there different materials, which maybe ties back to the environmental stuff, but are we looking into those sorts of things as well? Like, is that part of it?
Yes, absolutely. There's technology has been around for maybe 20 years called plastic logic, where you can make flexible transistors. They're slower, but they are bendy, which is cool, and you can make bendy components out of them. There's also a lot of optical chips coming out now, where you've got optical networks and light going across the chip instead of electrons. And that's used heavily in communication, so sending data across sort of long distances or even short distances. So supercomputers often have optical networks going across them.
So interesting. Is light faster than electricity in that sense?
Oh,
like, would
gosh.
it compute faster? Sorry, that's a really weird left
I'm going to go yes. I'm going to go yes.
Question.
I don't know the answer to that question, but it definitely depends on so many things as well, because the end-to-end system, it's not just the speed of the
Sure.
transfer, it's also how whether that's error prone, because if you've got a lot of errors on the line, you're going to have to send more information in order to get the right answer at the other end. And it's also the speed of the components you used for the transmit and receive end. So optical networks do use a lot more power, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, that's interesting.
Cool.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to. Sorry.
I think it's time to move on to our fourth question. And this is one that's come up a lot during the challenge and one we've discussed a lot as well. So it'd be interesting to hear what you have to say on it. How do we make sure that AI is fair and doesn't discriminate against people?
Oh, these questions are so good and so important as well. This is something actually I've written about because this worries me immensely. Essentially, AI is about manipulating data, making models out of data, and then concluding, using those models to take conclusions from other data sets. And if you don't have a fair representation of the population, let's say you want to make a decision about people who live in Wales, you're going to want to train your model based on people who live in Wales, right? It's no good training a model based on people who live in England and then applying that to Wales, because it might not be the same. And I think there is a real danger in AI and with these large language models that we are training models based on data from one part of the population, and then we are applying that to another part of the population. And that's where the AI, it will not be fair, and it may well discriminate against people. So there are a number of things you can do. You can have humans look for bias within the results and feed that back and retrain the model. The other thing you can do, and this is something you should always do when using AI, is whenever you're making a decision, you should make sure that there is a process in place where either a human checks that decision, or better still, you have a process by which that decision can be challenged and reversed. So a way for people to easily say, I don't think this is a fair decision. Can we look at the evidence and have a different assessment? making sure that that is easy and applied quickly. That's something that is a very, very important, whether no matter how you're using the AI to make a decision. So that can help as well. But I think making sure that the data set fairly represents people is really important, and a big danger of these large language models, because they're built using data from the internet, from things like Wikipedia and LinkedIn. And I don't know about you, but I don't talk to my friends as if I'm reciting a Wikipedia page. That doesn't represent the way I am or the way I communicate with people at all. And so trying to use a large language model that's been based on Wikipedia and then apply that to a conversation I might have with my friends, that just doesn't work. And so the fact that we have got large data sets for a very small amount of human communication is something that we really need to understand, and we really need to be aware of the big limitations of our AI models.
That's it, right? And they do seem like magic. I think when ChatGPT first came out, we saw lots of people quite blown away by how the tech could do these things and make what sounded like very natural language, like, you know, almost immediately. But I think it, like you said, it boils back to trust, and like not trusting the system like implicitly, and making sure that we're always challenging, we always have that oversight, right? And then when you talk about the LLM, like ChatGPT or similar, being trained on that huge corpus of data, that includes like the wacky web pages that say Elvis now lives in space, you know, all these other things that your mad Uncle Roger with his tinfoil hat makes up about aliens, like all of that is included in the LLM. And it doesn't know that that's garbage. It treats it just the same as all the other billions of words that got chopped up and fed into the model. And so those weightings put weightings against these different things, and you get those patterns spitting out bad information, right? Misinformation, hallucinations. We saw these sorts of things happening. And I think it's really important that, yeah, you're right, we get across this message that these systems are there to help us, but they're not here to replace our decision-making power or our oversight. Do you think there's some risk of that when we get these systems that are not so transparently used, or the AI system is kind of slipped in the back, and we're not really told that it's being done by an AI, that's where these problems are going to come in? Or do you think it's more at the user level of things that there's going to be these problems about trust?
So I would like to see in future it made very clear when AI has been applied. In the same way now that influencers are supposed to say when they've been paid to promote a product, and magazines are supposed to say when images have been manipulated, I think I would like to see the same sort of regulation applied to AI, so that we're very aware that an AI has been used to train and make recommendations. I mean, I worry about the dangers of AI a lot, but I also enjoy a lot of the benefits. I love how Spotify can guess what sort of mood I'm in and then put together a playlist for me. That's really fun. So yeah, I think there are huge benefits of AI, but obviously our customers are making amazing breakthroughs in medicine using AI. So I think it's something that we do need to embrace, but we need to embrace very carefully while understanding those limits, and we need to be very clear how and when we're using it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sorry, Lizzie.
I was going to say I'm a big fan of the Spotify playlists too, apart from when they assume that I'm very, very sad, which I get like a sad Monday playlist, which always makes me laugh. I'm not sure what I'm giving them that's making that's really interesting. Thank you. I think Mark.
Yeah, it leads us on to our next one, actually, which is sort of like about privacy, and like a bit on from trust, but looking at privacy and security. And so the question is, what can be done to stop AI or AI systems from being used to spy on people and spread fake news or misinformation?
Well, yeah, another great question, and that does really lead on nicely from what we're just saying about how making use of AI really transparent and obvious. I think the first thing to say is that fake news is not an AI problem. We've had fake news since we've had news, really. Well, I studied history at school, and we learned all about propaganda and so on, and the dangerous things that can do. from nefarious governments in the past. And I think I was looking up a story about the Cottingley fairies, where for about 80 years, people believed that someone had photographed fairies in their back garden, and this turned out to be one of the earliest faked photographs. So I don't think fake news is an AI problem. I think how powerful and convincing that fake news can be is a real danger, and that turns into an educational problem. We need to make sure that as AI rapidly becomes more convincing, that we are educating people about the dangers of AI and whether or not we can trust what we're looking at. I think at the moment it is still mostly possible to spot an AI generated video, because things like the videos are kind of cut strangely. You can't necessarily see the voice in sync with the face all the time, and a few things like that. That will change very soon. That will get better, and then we really won't be able to tell. So making sure that people know that, in the same way we educate people about possible scams, it's part of the same problem, really. So education is is really necessary to prevent spreading fake news. Making sure that it is possible to trust the sources. So, for example, when I'm looking at the BBC News, I know I'm looking at the BBC News, and because I can see the address at the top, and that's something I can trust. So, making sure that my computer is secure, making sure that no one can intercept that and feed me information that isn't from the BBC, and making sure that the BBC have processes in place as a semi-national organisation to make sure that the news that they're presenting is verified by means that cannot be changed using AI and so on. So making sure that you get your news from some trusted source, that's going to be key, and that's always been in the case. But it just means that things like videos that we used to be able to trust aren't so trustworthy anymore. And spying on people, that's an interesting question, because again, the spying, that's not something new to AI. People have always spied on other people. Now technology is ubiquitous. We now have a lot of information about ourselves being used by large corporations that are privately owned, and I think that's a big problem. I would like to see a lot of regulation around that, in addition to regulation around AI and around use of AI. We just talked about our music app. I have an exercise app. They know what I'm doing all the time. They know who I'm with. They know how fit I am. They know if I'm tired, if I'm sad. They know who all my friends are. That's a dangerous amount of information. And with AI, on top of that, they can glean a lot of information about me. I'm sure they know how old I am and what school I went to based on the music I listen to and the exercise I do and all sorts of things like that. So that is very dangerous. So I think technology as a whole, technology companies, and specifically AI, need a lot more regulation. I think cars and planes are very dangerous technologies that we have made quite safe by through regulation and through coordinated worldwide efforts that mean that safety standards are reasonably uniform around the world. We don't need to worry about different safety standards in different countries when we get on a plane. So that's something that I hope to see in the field of AI and around these big tech companies that own a lot of data about us. And to some extent, it is happening. So we're in a kind of a dangerous place where they have all this information and they have all this technology at the moment. Hopefully, in the next few years, we'll see that being locked down, and we'll see it being much more obvious how that technology is being used and applied, and much more restricted to make sure that bias has been eliminated or at least minimized, to make sure that data sets are representative of the use of that AI model, and hopefully to make sure that AI benefits everyone and not just a small number of already wealthy people. I would like to see a much more equal and equitable access to the benefits of AI than we have today.
Amazing. Yeah, no, I can't agree more. On that note, I think we should stop, because that's perfect. Like, more access to all of these tools for people around the world can only be better, right? More perspectives in the room when you're designing these tools, when you're building these things, is always, always better. That was amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you very much for having me.
That was our last question. I can't believe it. Time has flown. Thank you so much for joining us, Rosemary. That was fascinating. I have learned so much, and hopefully everyone watching will have too.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And goodbye.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Take it
Rose.
easy. Bye. All right. There we go. So, awesome. How cool is that?
That was amazing. I really do feel like I've learned a lot.
Yeah, I could have kept talking to Rosemary all afternoon, I think.
I know, we should bring her back. Wonderful. So that is us. That's our webinar. Thank you so much for joining us for this extra special Experience AI Challenge celebration. It's been wonderful to share everything with you today.
Absolutely. And if you submitted your project to the challenge, keep an eye out for your certificates. Will be arriving in your inbox in the next few weeks. Mentors will also receive a super exclusive Experience AI sticker pack. Check these out. Okay, so mentors will get these to dish out to their kids.
Yeah, these are so cool. I'm a big fan of the AI champion one, Mark. I reckon you need that one.
Nice one. Cheers. Yeah, I like that one. That's a winner. I like that sticker. So the real champions, though, I think, are all of you guys. We've been blown away by the ideas, skill, and enthusiasm that we saw in the challenge this year. So keep making cool things and keep exploring the world of AI. You'll find more resources and information on our website, which you can get to there.
Yeah. And you'll also find more awesome projects on our project site, which is this one. Lots of pointing.
Lots of pointing. And so thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. We will see you again soon. Catch you later.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.